I am a Pakistani spy. I completed my training and reached at India. I am working between enemy's army offices as open tea seller. The real story of Pakistani spy. Let's move towards story. I reached the appointed place about 10 minutes before the scheduled time. The place was very crowded. I started looking at various magazines at a bookstall nearby. 5 minutes before the scheduled time appeared to me. Both of us were wearing special colored handkerchiefs on our clothes for recognition of each other and for the good of all. After getting the eyes for the second checking, I had to make a specific movement with my right arm, in response to which the contact also had to make a specific movement. Positive gestures from both sides meant all good, while in case of danger, we had to hold handkerchiefs and other physical gestures. I will not explain these methods because it is very possible that the same methods are still practiced, and you have heard that even walls have ears. I bought a magazine and walked back. The contact was a few steps behind me. Ahead was a fruit shop. I started looking at different fruits and tasting them. Contact stood very close to me, and he too started asking the price of the fruits. I had taken a bag of clothes. Those days there were no plastic shoppers. I first bought 2 kilos of mangoes. The shopkeeper put them in a paper envelope and gave them to me, which I put in a bag. I was now holding a bag in my left hand. Contact was standing on my left side. I asked to show him. Mac, who turned back to pick up the prophetic shopkeeper, took a packet very quickly and walked back. Contact must also have bought some fruit after I went. Then left the bus and again sat in the number and put it in my bag from my residence. On reaching the hotel, I closed the door well, and there were 10,000 Indian rupees written on one side in Hindi. I lit a candle and applied heat to the pages. Slowly, the orange-colored letters began to emerge, and within 15 minutes, the secret light writing on all the pages became visible. These 5 pages were for the 5 of us. I was congratulated for making it across the border and reaching Delhi. Words were exhausted to cheer me up, and I was given a new mission to take precedence over all and immediately completed. The order was received. Receipt of mail and summary of circumstances was directed to write the receipt of receipt and summary of circumstances permissible in the work done so far. I already prepared to write the answer. He wrote 2 pages with the light of the letter, and wrote some parts of English poems on the other side of the 2 verses. The secret light is no longer a mystery, and today over 40 pages can be transferred in the space of a pin with microfilms. The secret light we used was onion or garlic onion water. If it is written on the paper, after drying, there is no mark on the paper, and when the paper is heated, the written words be visible. I was supposed to meet Contact the next day at another place at 10 a.m. and hand over my packet to him. Next day at exactly 10 a.m. we met at the appointed place, and I handed over my packet to him. I gave the letter to the colleagues after the return of the contact. We are all very much on this first contact with our homeland. We were happy these 5 papers had increased our morale. We once again renewed our commitment to accomplish our mission. I returned to my hotel and got busy preparing for the new mission. I took 6 packets of Lipton Green Label and Brook Bond Red Label and blended them overnight and packed them in approximately half a kilo packets and sealed them with solution tape. I was going out of Delhi for the actual execution of the mission and spent the night thinking of various strategies. The other day I said goodbye to my colleagues. I returned the transmitters that I had kept with me during stay there. Visit to Agra and Jhansi. Returning to the hotel, I soon fell into a deep sleep. Before leaving the next morning, I gave Contact a new place and a time of 2 o'clock, and asked to meet on the 12th. I wanted to send a detailed report of my new responsibilities within these 12 days. In my absence, I deputized the fellow with the transmitter. All 4 were staying in different hotels, and then I shifted them to Kannaught Place, thus allowing them to interact with each other outside the hotel. You may have noticed that I have changed some of the instructions given to me at the time of departure from Pakistan. It was because of Pakistan, I could not have a correct understanding of the internal conditions of India. India's incredible success in former East Pakistan in 1971 gave them a little more confidence. During my stay in Delhi for a few days, I felt that the security there was not very strict. It is a cosmopolitan city, and people from every region of India live here. Those who could have threatened them, they defeated Pakistan and considered almost dead. Briefly, considering the circumstances, I made some changes outside of the guidelines. These changes were limited to accommodation and the sending back of the border guides. After crossing the border, I was responsible for the success of the mission and the safety of my colleagues. I had to go to Ahmednagar. It was also reported that Ahmednagar is the center of training for Indian tanks. In this training center, the soldiers of the armed corps are trained not only in the operation of existing tanks and their guns, but also in the operation of T-series. The use of new series tanks is also taught. Air firing at weddings cannot be expert marksmen. During the war, thousands and millions of bullets from the front, smoke, dust, water, mud, and rain, without distinction of night or day. Accurate use and aiming of weapons, opening, cleaning, and then reassembling the weapon. Only a good shooter can be called an expert. I will never deny the fact that the Indian forces, if not better than us in training, are not inferior. But the millennial rule of the Muslims on the subcontinent had made them less courageous. In the War of 1965, Pakistan's forces, which were numerically less than they were, rescued them. But in the War of 1971, by destroying Pakistan and taking 90,000 Pakistani forces as prisoners, their dead, morale was revived and united India as Greater India. They started seeing the dream again. My mission was to go to the training center at Ahmednagar and get complete information about the new imported tanks, which regiments of ORD are receiving training here and on which tanks. Apart from this, I also want to know where these regiments will go after completing the training and which infantry they will be included with the divisions. I fully realized how important this information is for Pakistan. India also had a country-made tank named Vijayant, which was very heavy and slow in mobility. In '65 war, the Indian Commander-in-Chief General Chaudhry was very proud of these tanks and named them Black Elephants. In view, this mountain-like tank proved to be bulk. Apart from these, India has French-made 13M, Ravi, 76BT, and Russian T-series, were the best working tanks. After training, these tank battalions were deployed on the Indo Pak border. Information about the performance of these tanks and the awareness of their deployment on the border was very important for Pakistan. For example, if we put our obsolete World War II Sherman tanks in front of the Agrani 57 Indian tank, nothing could be achieved except the destruction of our tanks. At that time, in front of NI-57, Pakistan had to bring new series tanks and Patton tanks received from America, and that is why I had this important mission. Ahmednagar is located in an isolated place near Godavari River, about 500 kilometers before Bombay. There is no big industry or big city in its vicinity either. A tributary of the Godavari River passes very close to Ahmednagar. This area is very suitable for tank training. Up here down, the presence of mud, sand, and water can lead to all types of tank training. After a journey of nearly 22 hours, I reached Ahmednagar and took a room in a fine-star hotel. My main problem was to enter the restricted areas where there were brigade headquarters and division headquarters. Getting into the training area was firstly futile, and secondly, almost impossible. Went and offered his tea and thanks. I gave them my Bombay New Nagpate address. I had made my business card from Delhi and booked a hotel stay in Ahmednagar. Also told I was sure that the quality and price of my tea would be attractive to them. While going to these to headquarters, I identified the insignia of the division and the regiment. They were almost all for the same division and regiment, of which it was the headquarters, and I was looking for trainees. In the evening, I went for a walk in the city. I took a cycle rickshaw and asked to go around the city, towards the training center where the city limits end. I saw bars outside the cantonment and saw soldiers going in and out. I entered a bar, and while training, as I was shown the insignia of all Indian regiments, I immediately recognized that they were all men from different tank regiments. In India at that time, soldiers were given 2 ounces of alcohol free in their rations every day. Obviously, 2 ounces of wine did not satisfy his intoxication. Therefore, there were wine bars built around the cantonment where the natives used to drink, and there these soldiers used to fulfill their remaining needs. I got drunk on these wines. I made a plan to get his point across from the false soldiers and came back. The next day I again went to the Adus and 2 IC offices. My wish were just lying there. From both places I was told that within a week would decide whether to buy my tea or not. And if the decision goes in my favor, also the money as a guarantee to continue supplying me must be submitted, and a formal agreement will be made with me as to when I will start supplying. Conversation of office clerks, etc. I got the idea that the Adus at Division HQ and Brigadier HQ, this brigade was not under the division there to IC, and to increase communication with the Adus joint, that you will make them happy. I invited one of the slightly more cheerful clerks from the Adus office to my hotel for an evening of chatting and entertaining. He excused himself from coming to the hotel because there were many military police in the city, and many hotels were designated off limits to soldiers, and the FIU military police were roaming around to arrest soldiers from these prohibited areas. And seeing a military official with a strange civilian in a hotel in the city, they could have been suspicious. I told him that there is a mill at one of the bars outside the cantonment. He agreed and gave me the location of a bar to meet at 8 p.m. By inviting him, one of my purposes was solved, that I should not be a stranger in these cantonments, but accompanied by a soldier. Once you are introduced to a place, then talk about your meaning to others there. I will not have much problem. I reached there before 8:30 in the evening and started walking around. When I looked in through the door, he was already sitting. I entered and reached his desk. He welcomed, and before he ordered anything, I asked for a full bottle of the best wine available there. Somehow, he made a formal protest, on which I said that you are a military employee, a professional, who is getting a reduced salary, while I am a businessman. During his drinking, routine familiars also came, and I also brought them on my table. In this hall of the bar, soldiers of different tank regiments and INCOs were present, and there was a lot of confusion. I was looking for such an environment. I also wanted to say something special, so that night, I didn't talk about anything except talking here and there and taking a bath. There it turns out that this is the most reasonable pub, and all pubs close at 12 o'clock at night. To eat, I also ordered everyone's favorite, and when we got up, they had belched 3 bottles of wine. Many rickshaws were coming. I went to the cantonment while I took a rickshaw to the hotel. Seeing the atmosphere there, I made up my mind that I will start my work from the next evening. I reached there alone in the evening at 7 o'clock. At that time too, the bar had a special clientele. Due to last night's big tip, the waiter politely took me to an empty table, brought me wine. I got up after a while, glass in hand, and passed by a table, deliberately staggered and choked. 5 soldiers were sitting on this table. They started staring at me, smiled apologetically, and then openly sneezed. Before he could say anything, I said that I am from here. I have met Adus in his cantonment for business purposes. I am your guest, but now all 5 of you are my guests. Drunkenly, I asked waiter to bring my bottle and 2 other bottles to my table. First-rank soldiers and young men everywhere are generally very narrow-minded, and then when a businessman meeting Adus, which is the rank of Elt, Colonel sits casually in such ranks, they become very polite. Or at first, he refused to become my guests, but when I frankly started calling him Yar Yar, his begging stopped and a friendly atmosphere was created. And after a while, he even started talking to me. They started doing it. I cleverly turned the conversation to my tea business, tea from India and Bengal, and then the smuggling of tea into India from the former East Pakistan. Thank you so much for watching our video. This is real story of Pakistani spy Abu Shuja Abu Wakr, the man who served in India as a spy agent in the cover of Open Tea Trader. If you have no subscribed, then subscribe our channel now and press the bell icon so you never miss any update of this story. If you like the video, please give it a like, comment below to let us know your opinion. We will meet you again with another episode. Till then, have a good care of yourself.